In this recording, we're going to assess the view that the Western model of education is not appropriate for most developing countries. The Western model of education is categorized by being meritocratic, state-funded through taxations, is free and compulsory to certain ages. Neoliberals believe that the Western model of education is inappropriate, but they do argue that education is very important, but the following Western model means taxation, and this means that lower investment from TNCs, so businesses will not want to come to the country because there are higher rates of tax, and in turn this will prevent development. For example, Primark has had to exploit Bangladesh because of its lack of restrictions and taxations, meaning it can have workers on low pay and long hours, which only benefits the West. If Western models of education were inflicted, TNCs would pull out the country, so less investment and opportunities would come about. However, the problem with neoliberal theory is that state-funded meritocratic education helps developing countries as it gives values of individualism, geographical mobility, the chance to live a full life developing yourself, and in turn developing the rest of the country. For example, in India, they have state-funded education based on the Western model of meritocracy, and it is compulsory to 14. As a result of compulsory education, Kerala was declared the first fully literate state of India, and life expectancy was high and child mortality was the best in the country. People-centered approaches also believe that the Western model is inappropriate because Western models of education destroy indigenous cultures and knowledge systems. This type of education leads to a cash economy and forgets the social, environmental and cultural development of a country. For example, in the Amazon, where tribes knew about certain diseases and cures, this has now been taken over by Western medicine, and thinking that these cures have been lost instead of learning about local waterborne diseases, because instead they are learning about the biggest problems and killers in the West. However, on the other hand, modernization theory would argue that the Western model of education is a good thing because meritocracy is the best way to educate regardless of cultures. Because meritocracy naturally gets the best people into the best jobs, and so more and more people will be working harder to get those jobs, and slowly the skill level of the nation will increase. For example, the Apple TNC goes into other countries and selects some of the best people to work for them, trains them up, and then through working hard they can get promoted within the country in that nation. By learning English, they can be promoted, which will improve the economy through the new cash flow that leads to development. However, the problems of the Western model of education is that it simply creates an illusion of free education. For instance, it ignores the hidden cost of education, such as textbooks. For example, in Uganda, despite spending £302 million on primary education, there is still a 70% dropout rate because of the hidden costs. Also, families may have to select which of their children goes to school, and the most likely people will be the males, meaning that females will not be empowered and that skills and roles will go to males rather than females, so the labour market will be poor and small and their development will not occur. However, modernisation theory would come back at this and say that even if there are only a small selection of pupils going to school because of the hidden costs, at least some people are going to get the skills to go out into the world of work, and not all the time women are going to be left out of education. Also, they would argue that education, literacy and numeracy specifically are human rights, and people get them best through a Western education model of state-funded education, as it means that there are bursaries for poorer students. For example, in Africa, there are child labour-free zones where children are not allowed to work exploitative jobs. They have to go to school, and the state funds this, which will increase the quality of life and raises the living standard. So in conclusion, there is the argument that state-funded education is a problem, because it does not cover the hidden cost of education, but perhaps The more inappropriate idea is the idea of superiority of Western values over indigenous values, leading to the latter being forgotten. In turn, forcing Western values onto other cultures is disrespectful and only works to benefit the West, who will gain Western educated and trained workers for TNCs.